Minasan, konnichiwa, and welcome to Japan Tonight. We have a very special guest for you this evening, none other than the ancient King Nebuchadnezzar. Mr. Nebuchadnezzar, it's so great to have you on the show
Good to be here, Stephen.
I'm really excited. Got some great questions for you tonight.
All right.
Now, to start things off, could you just talk a little bit about what life was like before you were a king?
Sure. All right, what was life like before I became king? You know, that's a really great question, Stephen, you know. But just kind of thinking about that the other day, kind of going back to my past, you know. I grew up and my parents, they originally kind of called me Nabu, but I didn't like that too much. I was the oldest son of the king. And as you guys know, my dad, the king, he was something. He pretty much founded the entire empire that was the Babylonian Empire. I mean, he put the whole thing together. So it was cool growing up as a king's child, you know. As I got older, I started to gain in popularity, go up the ranks a little bit. I joined the military, and I just started trying to grow and become more powerful. At the time, we were at war with Egypt, and as the crown prince, I had many opportunities, many possibilities. So it was actually me who led the Babylonians into victory against the Egyptians. So that was really cool, but it was bittersweet. You know, I had victory against this enemy that we had been battling, but it was also that time when I learned that my dad had died. You know, and I'll never forget that day. It was a day that I've really had waited for my entire life, a day when I could finally take the throne. And so I chose some of my best men, and together we rode 23 days across the blazing hot desert. You know, never gonna do that again. Ooh. And on September 6th, I became king over the greatest empire ever on the earth. It was something. So that was pretty much my childhood growing up.
Very interesting, very interesting. So I heard that you had 4 friends who really changed your life. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, yeah, there was these 4 guys, you know. They were led by this guy, Daniel, these 4 guys, and, you know, it's something. You know, I'm the king of this giant empire, and these 4 guys, they really did have an impact in my life, and this man, Daniel. These 4 Jewish men. There was something different about them. And I didn't have it, so I was really interested in kind of finding out about these guys. So after I interviewed them, I saw something that was just so special. I mean, here I am, the greatest king, you know, ever on the earth, and they just seemed so calm and confident when in the presence of the king. And it was kind of like as if they knew someone who was even higher, more powerful than me, some kind of greater king or something. And at the time I didn't understand, you know. And they would talk all the time about this God of theirs, but I didn't know what they were talking about. And I was a very busy man, you know. I didn't have time to talk about God, and by the way, I just didn't think that this God was all that great at the time. So I just let them go by their work, and they continued to serve me. But one day, it was maybe a year after I had first talked to these guys, I started having these nightmares, you know? Man, they terrified me. Oh, man. I tried to get my friends and my counselors to help me, but gotta admit, during this difficult time, they could not help. It's weird, but Daniel was the only one who actually could help me out. And God had come to him and basically told him my dream. And he told him what it meant. So Daniel, he came to me, and when I heard this, I can't explain it. I knew it was true. I knew what he was telling me was true. And it was, I began to think, you know, more and more and more about this Most High God. And so I even made Daniel my chief advisor, put him in charge of many of my affairs. He helped me out, so I helped him out. So yeah, these 4 men, they definitely played a a big part in my life, especially this person, Daniel. Yeah.
Now, if I recall, you were very, very busy during this time.
Yeah, you know, Stephen, I definitely stayed pretty busy. I mean, it takes a lot to be a king of a huge nation like Babylon. I mean, I was pretty busy, you know. I was building the greatest city in all of the world. You know, I built a system of double walls all around the city. Huge. I mean, in modern day terms, these walls were as wide as a 6-lane highway. I mean, that takes a lot, you know. We didn't have bulldozers and stuff like you guys do now. You know, this was all hard labor. So, built this giant wall. We had 8 humongous buildings that were 8 stories tall. I mean, we had these humongous gates, which I had named after some of my gods at the time, you know. I had this humongous place set up for my wife, Amethyst, and I built these hanging gardens, which, by the way, were one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. So I kept very busy, you know. And my life, I didn't think it could have been any better. I had my health, I had my family, I had my palace, I had my kingdom. You know, it included most of what you know today as the Middle East. Big, you know, I controlled a lot. You know, I had my gods, which I thought were helping me and helping me to become successful, but there was just one thing that I was lacking, you know? I just didn't have peace of mind. It's weird, because I had everything, but it was almost like I had nothing. I just did not have a peace of mind.
Are you feeling thirsty? You need to drink all refreshing Skull. We'll return after these messages.
Skull!
I'm so thirsty.
Skull!
Whoa! I'm so thirsty!
Skull!
I'm very thirsty. Oh no!
Skull!
We are so thirsty.
Skull!
I'm not thirsty. I'm not thirsty because I drank.
Skull! 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 Skull!
Skull! It satisfies! For a little while. Maybe. Just give it a try.
Now we all know you went a little crazy. Do you mind telling us about that?
And now, back to
Well,
our
I knew
program.
this question was going to come up. I mean, it was a very difficult time in my life. That much I can just put out there. It was, I don't even know really what was going on. I mean, basically it all started when the dreams came back. You know, I started having those nightmares again. And night after night, I saw the same bad dream. Just thinking about it, sorry. You know, I'd wake up in a cold sweat and shaking and crying, and I feared this dream so much, and I thought it was maybe a whisper. Somehow maybe God was trying to speak to me through this dream, and I wondered why they were given to me. But I also knew that there was one man who could help me, and you know, that was Daniel. He helped me before, so I was hoping maybe he could tell me what these dreams meant. But at the same time, I was really afraid to find out. So finally, though, I called on Daniel, and he said, Nebi, you're being warned by God. He's saying you're like a tree. He's saying I was great and strong, but I was also very proud. He said God would soon cut me down and make me to live like an animal for 7 years. 7 years of living like an animal. I thought Daniel was crazy. But he said, unless you are willing to admit that God is the Most High and that God is the ruler of all, you're going to end up like this, living like an animal. Then Daniel, he looked at me and he pretty much just begged me, Nebuchadnezzar, please follow after God. Please listen to him. I thought about that. And Daniel laughed, and it's amazing. The dreams stopped. I tried to do what he said, Many people even said that they saw a change in me during this time. I tried to do what, Daniel said. I started to make peace with some of my enemies, I stopped using some of the bad language that I was using. I fed the poor. I built a few temples. I spent more time with my sons. And I would have done more, but, things were going so well. And after a month or so, I pretty much forgot about the dream, and I continued to build, and I continued to prosper. And, well, you know how it is. I mean, you get busy, You're talk show host, you can understand that. I just got busy, so I continued to do what I was doing. Then one day I took a walk on the roof of my royal palace, and the sun was shining. What a view up there from looking out at all Babylon. It was in front of me. I felt so proud of what I had done. I thought it doesn't get any better than this, I'm just kind of sharing my story. But I knew I was in trouble suddenly. I can't explain it, but I just knew I was in trouble. And to be honest, Stephen and everyone at home, I don't remember really what happened, but people pretty much tell me I went insane, I went crazy, and lost control. My advisors, they watched as I pretty much became wild like an animal, just like Daniel had told me years ago. And I went out and I even ate the grass like my cattle. And my hair grew long, and my fingernails were like cat claws or something. And I really did become like a wild animal. For 7 years, my advisors, they would not even let anyone into my presence. They just said, the king is sick. The king is sick. No one even knew really what was wrong. So that's pretty much what I did, is lost control for 7 years. 7 years.
So what was it that brought about a cure?
It's funny that you asked that. As king, I had all of the best, doctors and everyone. But one day I woke up and I just saw the sky. And I don't remember a whole lot about those 7 years, but one day I remember I woke up and there it was, this beautiful blue sky. And I just started thinking and saying over and over, the Most High rules. The Most High rules. And the more I thought about it, the more I said it, my mind began to clear. It was like I woke up from a dream. I wasn't even the same person. I cannot even explain really what happened. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I knew who I was. And I knew who he was. And right there in that grassy field, I knelt down, lifted up my arms to heaven, and cried out, his kingdom is everlasting. His rule is from generation to generation. He does as he pleases in the heaven and on earth. No one can hold back his hand. No one can question him. I remember those words very clearly. And when I had finished, I looked at the palace and I couldn't believe it. Daniel and the others, they were coming out to meet with me. Within hours, I was, back on the throne, and Babylon became even more successful. But me, I was different. I didn't pretend to be God. And thank goodness I wasn't living like an animal. I was just a man. I happened to be king, but I was just a man. And I knew that the Most High God, He is God. And it's God that rules.
Oh, sorry, Nebuchadnezzar. We're just about out of time, but if you don't mind, could you share some lessons that you learned with the viewers?
Sure, I'd love to definitely share some stuff about this, period of time in my life and my story, just as I've had this opportunity to share my testimony with all of you. And I know many of you aren't kings like me, but many of you sit on your own thrones. Maybe you think that you rule your own life, that you have control of it all. Maybe you say, I have no room for God. Maybe you think that God, He's only for weak people. I don't know. But let me tell you one thing. You might think that you are in control of your life. And if you act like you are in control of your life, please remember my story. I thought I had it all under control. I was king. I was ruler. I thought I could handle everything. But until I recognized God who He was, I went insane. Something was always missing. I had everything, but I had nothing, because I had an emptiness in my heart. Maybe you're a religious person and you're just as proud maybe as I was. Thought my story, through my story though, God, I hope He can maybe send a warning to you. It's the Most High God that rules. Break away from any sins and follow Him. You cannot live a life that's cluttered with sin. You need to break away from those things and follow God with all of your being, with all of your life, with all of your heart. And if you don't humble yourself now, God may have to humble you later like He did me. It's dangerous to walk in pride and arrogance, pretending that you have your life under control, that you can do better than God. I know. That's my story. Get your life right and live for Him. And remember, God reigns. The Most High God reigns.
Well, it's been nice having you on the show, Mr.
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar. Really interesting stuff, It's
been good to be here, for
yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
You're welcome back anytime.
Alright.
Maybe we can go out for sushi sometime,
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much,
Alright.
Steven.
Alright. Thanks, Nebi.
And from Tokyo, good night.